Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another live stream where we are going to cover lots of important questions. We've had loads of macro updates in the past few weeks, and tonight we're going to cover pretty much everything that's went on over the last probably 90 days, what we think's coming over the next 90 days, and why we remain super bullish on the markets as we approach the second half of the year. We've got loads of questions sent in by CC Pro members. We're going to cover them first. We're going to have a quick look at the charts, and we have lots of backup or information that we can share to kind of support our bullish view on the markets. As always, timing-wise, that is the hardest thing to predict in markets. No one knows the timing But we'll give you an idea of what we're looking at, what we think is happening. We'll give you an update on Quintoshi as well, and we will look at some projects that people have been sending in. If you do have any questions or anything you want covered, drop it in the chat. We'll try and get to it. As always, CC Pro members have dropped loads of great questions today, made prep for this live stream a bit easier than normal. And yeah, let's dive into the charts. So Bitcoin currently sitting around $104,000. The US markets are closed today. So despite the FOMC last night, we've not really seen too much movement in the markets because the markets are closed. Europe, Asia basically are waiting on the US. Liquidity is kind of flowing in Europe and Asia, not so much in the US. So yeah, markets closed, no real reaction to FOMC last night. If we look at the daily candle, we had a bit of a pop-up after the FOMC. Obviously, Jerome Powell kept rates paused again, so no rate cut and no mention of QE either. But 2 rate cuts still on the table for 2025, which means that with just 4 meetings left to go, we are kind of getting to the point where one of these meetings is going to spark a cut, and it looks like all bets are on September. But if we just focus on price, you can see Bitcoin's dipped back into this kind of parallel channel. It is slightly bearish, in my opinion, short term, only because we are now testing the underside as resistance. It was previously support. How much attention I pay to that today? Probably not a lot. Yesterday we had FOMC. Today markets are closed, so tomorrow's probably going to give us a better indication of the market reaction to the Fed's movements yesterday, or lack of. For me, I think we're kind of in that moment where the market's coiling up. So if we look at, you can see Bitcoin on the daily kind of forming this falling wedge. We've done it so many times before. It's kind of now, we had a big one here. That was between kind of January 2025 and April earlier this year. Tariff war sparked the recovery. We then had this falling wedge here. The Elon Trump drama kind of sparked the bottom. And now we're in another falling wedge, and it looks like the Iran-Israel conflict is probably going to be the catalyst for some form of bottom. To me, it looks like the market's de-risking. Everyone is just on kind of edge, waiting on, is the US going to get involved? Is the US not going to get involved? It does look like Trump today said that he's going to take 2 weeks to decide if they're getting involved. I can't see that happening. I think that's just a tactic to stall. I think there will be peace negotiations. I don't think Iran can last 2 weeks. They've been bombed. It looks like this conflict will be over sooner than that, in my opinion, but what do I know? But yeah, so it does look like the market is just kind of waiting on edge for some kind of news. I think if the US does get involved, we'll have like a capitulation moment, a bit like the tariffs where we absolutely sell off, but that marks the bottom. And then if we get peace negotiations, we'll just absolutely rip from here. In my opinion, I can't see the US getting involved, but I can see them indirectly getting involved. But the reason I'm so bullish right now is even if we get that capitulation, I do think the next leg is going to take us way higher because we are on course to get that liquidity. I think as well, what's keeping me so bullish is no matter what's been thrown at this market, whether it be Iran, Israel, Trump, Elon, recession, no rate cuts, Bitcoin's been above 100k for pretty much ages. Since the 9th or the 8th of May, we've been above 100k. So that's now, what, 42 days? That's super bullish. 100k is such a big psychological level for Bitcoin. If you think about, if you go back to 2021, 100k was where everybody said the market was going, and we fell short, got to $69,000 before retracing. So the fact that we're holding steady and remaining bullish up here, and everybody on Twitter, everybody in the market is saying that Bitcoin's going lower, bearishness, that kind of leads me to the bullish bias where if we were to absolute pump from here, the amount of shorts that would get wrecked, I think it's like 12 billion at $115,000. But on top of that, so many people would have to buy in because they've de-risked and they're sitting on the sidelines. So It's 50-50 what happens next. We either get that capitulation bottom or we move up from here and absolutely wreck people that are shorting the market. For me, I still remain, there's a dip buyer's market. We're putting another higher low. We're looking very bullish long term. And by long term, I kind of just mean like maybe 45 days. I think we'll be at 125k and maybe even a lot higher. But in the next 3 or 4 or 5 days, I do think we might get that capitulation move, especially if anything escalates with conflict or the US movement. If we look at Ethereum, again, holding up, now just trading sideways, typical. We had this big move up, we're now trading sideways. I've got an Ethereum update that I'll do shortly. XRP looking pretty bullish, to be fair, holding this line is now basically putting almost like a triple bottom, 3 rising valleys, you want to call it. That to me is quite a bullish setup, holding this line as support, not going back to the lows. Yeah, for me, the market is just in a bit of a sideways consolidation moment after Bitcoin put in its all-time high. I think, despite what everyone's saying, I actually think the FOMC was bullish because we now know that either in July or September we're going to get a rate cut, and I think that's bullish for markets, and I think we'll start seeing that getting priced in very soon. If we look at Bitcoin dominance, still remains just shy of 65%. I think if we do get another move up in the next few days, that'll start falling. I think it'll be a broader market move, especially given that we've seen Ethereum, Solana, a lot of chat about companies adopting them instead of Bitcoin. We've seen Solana ETFs get filed. There's a Solana company filing for IPO. There's a lot of stuff happening in the kind of bigger altcoin space. And then obviously we've got the stablecoin bill, which is super bullish for crypto, and I'll explain why I'm so bullish on it. But, you know, up 33%, but up huge. I think at IPO, I think the pre-IPO price was $35. So if you got in there, you're up, what, 450%, which is huge. And I think that'll start a flurry of crypto IPOs that will happen in the second half of this year. Right, let's so some of the questions we have, let's scroll back through and I'll get to the first question. When Lambo, very soon, in my opinion. Let me talk about Quintoshi, because I think everybody's been asking about it today. Now, Quintoshi, we've said from the start, Quintoshi is a long-term passive income. Set and forget, don't worry about it, check back in a few months. In the first month, we also made amazing gains. So from a 20k account, I think our account made $8,000 profit. So if you remove that, effectively, you're risk-free for, if you want to make 10% per month, you're basically up for 4 months. You don't have to worry about it at all. On top of that, Quintoshi is up over 21% since we started following it in February, while Bitcoin's only up 9%. So if you look at those, let me pull it up here. You can see 21.8% we're up since the 18th of February. If we do the same on Bitcoin, I don't know, earlier, let's see. So we were, let's take the open that day, it's a bit higher. Yeah, Bitcoin's up less than 9% in that time. So while the market is up and Bitcoin putting a new all-time high, it's only up 9%. So if you had all your funds in Bitcoin, you'd be up 9%. If you had all your funds in altcoins, you'd be pretty much down. I'm pretty certain of it. Let's, in fact, maybe not down, but let's have a look. Yeah, you'd be down. So 18th February is here. So you'd be down 5.75%. So the point is, Quintoshi is diversification. We've said this from day one. Quintoshi is a way to diversify, earn passive income. So over the month since 18th of February, Quintoshi up 21%, Bitcoin's only up 9%, altcoins are down 5%. So there is a timing element to it. So somebody said that they're down from entry. That is going to happen depending on when you enter. The point of Quintoshi is it's a long-term passive income stream. It's not a, like if you buy a house and in 6 weeks you go and get it revalued, it might have dropped since you bought it at your purchase price. That's not how you buy property. That's not how you buy most assets. The problem with crypto is everybody's conditioned to look at hourly, 4-hour and daily charts. That's nonsense in investing. Most people look at years or decades. We told everybody when we talked about Quintoshi, we've got the videos, that Quintoshi is a long-term passive income stream, and it is performing very nicely. Now, I don't like 30% drawdowns as much as the next person. However, over the long term, it is going to be profitable, and we're pretty convinced of it. And 62% annualized ROI is huge. Find me another asset that you can get 62% annualized ROI after a 30% correction, after the biggest capitulation event in crypto's history. I'll struggle. I'll wait for somebody to actually find me a better one. So that's kind of the elephant in the room. That's kind of Quintoshi. Don't really want to dwell on it. It's performing. It's passive income. It's set and forget. If you're going to try and manipulate it, enter, exit, increase, decrease, there is going to be fluctuations. However, for us, we put 20k in and we're going to leave it. We're probably going to take out profit every month or so and leave the balance at 20k. And yeah, everybody has to manage it themselves. If you want to get involved, there is a link in this video for BloFin. You need to sign up using our link and then find us, Quintoshi CC Steady. You can sign up and you can follow along as well. Probably not a bad time to sign up as well, given that Bitcoin is down from all-time high, and like within the next few weeks we're going to be back at all-time high. So Bitcoin's got at least 7% move up in the next few weeks, if not a lot more. So that's Quintoshi. That was one of the questions from CC Pro members, but I saw it in the chat as well. So yeah, I thought let's cover that, and yeah, let's see what's happening. All right, next question. Let's have a look. Do we have any doubts that there's not going to be an alt season? And if yes, what are the signs to look out for? What's worrying? Right, so I have poor ROI. Davey's obviously a big fan. Or a word similar to that. So Bitcoin, Bitcoin's in a massive bull trend, like a huge bull trend. See if you zoom out on the weekly chart, like this is what's quite tricky right now in crypto. So if we take the bottom to now, we're up 552%. Bull run full mode for Bitcoin. It's going amazing. The problem is the market breadth hasn't opened up. And if you compare it to the stock market, the exact same thing has happened in the stock market. We had the Mag 7 that have absolutely trashed every other company. The Mag 7 has dominated the S&P, and every other company's kind of fell or just struggled to keep up with them, to be honest. And the S&P returns are positive for the year, but if you take out the Mag 7, they're actually negative. The exact same thing's happening in crypto. Bitcoin is absolutely dominating. We've got ETFs, we've got institutional adoption, we've got all that stuff. But what will eventually happen, what always happens, is market breadth opens up. So if you really want to be worried about going into a bear market, for me, the 200-week moving average, if we drop below that, that's a bear market. But an earlier sign for me would be the 3-day 200 moving average. So if we look back, we can see when we crossed this, we had a bit of deviation. But once we crossed this red line, we go basically straight up. And when we crossed below it, we basically went straight down. So the 3-day 200 moving average for me would be the warning sign if we cross below that for Bitcoin. But for me, Bitcoin is leading the way. Dominance is at 65%. This happens in every bull run. Bitcoin runs. The fact that Bitcoin continues to show strength and dominance hasn't rolled over is actually bullish and actually signals to the market that Bitcoin's probably going to continue much, much higher. Because as we get closer to the top for Bitcoin, dominance starts dropping. As people rotate out of Bitcoin, they start taking profit off the table, they start buying altcoins. Dominance starts dropping as we get closer to the top. So let's have a look at 2021. And we'll cover this. I'll leave these annotations on the screen because I think that was quite an important chart that we shared in CC Pro. So we'll cover it on this stream. So obviously everybody knows 9th of November, kind of the top. Let's have a look at Bitcoin dominance. So as you can see, the top for Bitcoin was, the first top was in April 2021. But you actually see dominance starts to roll over 3 months before that. So this is kind of my point is, once dominance starts rolling over, you know Bitcoin's getting close to the top. The fact that dominance hasn't started dropping tells me that we've still got a bit to go. We've still got Bitcoin to go a lot higher, and that is super bullish. And everybody keeps saying institutions own all the Bitcoin, they're not going to chase risk. But as we shared in the last live stream, companies already are. There's companies now coming out saying they're not going to adopt a Bitcoin strategy, they're going to adopt an Ethereum strategy or a Solana strategy. And the reason is, it's a bit like the average investor. If you have $1 million to deploy into crypto right now, you probably buy Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum, maybe Solana, maybe XRP, but you definitely don't put $1 million into a meme coin or a small altcoin. But as you get smaller, so if you've only got $1,000 to invest in the market, you probably go for more risky options because you want that upside. You want that massive upside. And also, $1,000, you could probably make it back. $1 million, a bit harder to make back. So this happens with businesses, this happens with serious investors, it happens all over the place. People chase risk because they want the upside reward. So for me, companies are going to do the same. Institutions are going to do the same. Hedge funds are going to do the same. They're all going to eventually chase risk and they're going to go out on the risk curve, and that's what causes the alt season. On top of this, anyone that's been in crypto since 2021 has been buying Bitcoin at 16k. They were buying at 18, 20, 25k. So they're still up. But what the charts are showing is Bitcoin's not ready to top. So people aren't rotating until we get closer to the top. So, to answer the question, absolutely zero doubt that there's not going to be an alt season. If Bitcoin breaks below the 3-day 200 moving average at 71k, I'd be worried. If it broke below the weekly 200 moving average, then it's game over. We're in a bear market. Neither of which I think is going to happen anytime soon. So, yeah. Next question. Do you think the way things are playing out is any different from previous bull runs? If America gets involved in Iran. Right. So, for me, every bull run is different because adoption grows, regulation changes, institutions adopt Bitcoin. We get massive changes every time there's a different cycle. Money changes, liquidity changes, the global players change, presidents change. All these things change, so the cycle is slightly different every time. This year, or this cycle, should I say, we got massive inflows of capital pre-halving because of the ETF approval. So that kind of shifted everybody's focus. On top of that, we've got massive institutional buying of Bitcoin. We've got nation states mining Bitcoin. We've got loads of attention on Bitcoin right now, but we don't actually have the US cutting rates. So for me right now, this is insanely bullish, that without rate cuts, without QE, Bitcoin is absolutely flying. Because remember, in 2020, 2021, we had huge stimulus, and it was just a bit of a casino. Right now, we've not got that because we don't have easy money, but we know easy money will come back, and the reason we know that is because they're basically telling us. So if you don't follow Scott Bessent on Twitter, go and follow him. He's the Treasury Secretary of the US, and he's basically told everybody the US is going to grow faster than their debt is growing. Well, their debt's growing at 6% a year. So in order to grow faster than that, they're going to have GDP growth of nearly 10%. There is only one way in the world they are going to do that, and that is by printing tons of money, deregulating, reducing all legislation about business, about banks, everything they can to drive the economy as hot as possible. And that's going to cause a massive alt season, and it's going to cause a massive bull run. And the reason it's going to cause alt season is because look at what Trump's buying. His company's buying Ethereum. They are massively involved in stablecoins. He's talking about the America-made altcoins. Everybody welcomed Trump to the Bitcoin conference as this Bitcoin president. He's a crypto president. He's bullish crypto, and he keeps saying he wants Main Street to win. He's sick of Wall Street winning all the time. He wants the average person on the street to win. Well, the easiest way to do that is just pump altcoins, because it's the average person that's holding altcoins. It's not the massive institutions yet, but the institutions are switching on, and I do think that'll come. I think we'll see that later on in probably the end of the summer, maybe the end of this year. Somebody asked, I don't know where the question is, but I'll just cover it now. Somebody asked about quarters. Let me just, I think I've broke my chart. 2 seconds. So if we go back to 2017, we can see that the top came in the December 2017, but we had a pretty bullish year, to be honest. If you look at the monthly candles, from April to December, we only had one red month, and even then, it had a massive capitulation event. But other than that, we were pretty much sideways. So this would be us here right now. This is June, that's July, and that's August. I think we might see something similar. And the reason for that is September is going to be when they cut rates, pretty much. It's almost guaranteed. But nothing's a guarantee. But that means that October, November are also going to be bullish. For me, I think September, the rate cut is going to be a sell the news event. And I showed why to CC Pro this week, and I'll show it to everybody watching right now. So back in 2021, we had cheap rates, we had 0% interest, inflation started rampaging, there was a lot of pressure on the Fed. November the 3rd, 2021, 6 days before the all-time high, the Fed comes out and says, next year we're going to have to start hiking rates. We're going to have to hike rates because inflation's running away and we're going to have to cool inflation. What happened? The market peaked, topped 6 days later, exit liquidity. This is a massive scam pump to get out of the market for smart money because they knew what was coming. And then the market sold off. And the market went basically into a bear market then, not confirmed until we broke below some key levels. But that was effectively the top when the Fed came out and said, we're going to start removing this cheap capital from the market. What happened? The first rate hike actually happened here, and the market's pumped. Why? Because markets are forward-looking. Markets price things in. That's why the Fed gave 6 months or 3 months notice or 4 months notice. They give markets notice. If they just came out and surprised everybody, there'd be absolute pandemonium. There'd be chaos. There'd be just madness in Wall Street, in the government, in any part of the economy, there will be chaos. They can't do stuff like that. They have to give forewarning so that markets can adjust, businesses can adjust, and everybody can be ready for the actual action. That's what happened. I think we're going to see the reverse of this. I think now that we know rate cuts are coming in the second half of the year, the market's going to start to price it in. And the markets will probably go over and above. So we'll probably get an overextended pump. Bitcoin will go up to, say, 150k, and then it'll sell off. And I think it will sell off quite dramatically in September with the rate cut, because it'll be a sell the news event. And at that point, everybody will scream, it's over, bull market's done, and we need to see what actually happens from there. A lot can change, whether it is the top or it's kind of like the first top before we go on and put in a blow-off top. What will determine if it really is the top is that euphoria phase. If we get massive chaotic euphoria leading up to the dump that I think's coming, then it probably is the top. If we don't, if we just have an all-time high like we've been having, then I think we'll see a mini correction, maybe 30-35% in September, and then we'll see a blow-off top, probably Q1 2026. That's what I'm thinking. That's what looks likely, and it's based on this. It's based on markets pricing things in ahead of time, and I think we're just waiting on some form of resolution with the Israel-Iran thing. I don't think it's too much to pay attention to. Notice that Israel-Iran kicked off. Everybody's forgot about tariffs. Everybody's stopped talking about Epstein. Everybody's stopped talking about all these big... The LA riots have disappeared from news. Everything's just a news story, a distraction. It's all noise. Focus on the charts. Think long term. And take some time off the hourly and 4-hour charts. If America gets involved in Iran, we will see a massive capitulation, maybe like a 15-20% drop, and then we'll recover. It'll be a V-shaped recovery. It'll be like COVID. That's kind of what I think. And I also don't think America are going to be in it for long. I think they're going to be in it for like a day or two, and then that'll be it. It'll be game over. All right, let's get on with some more questions. So, a few charts. So, let's have a look. So, XRP, we kind of touched on. I think it's building up quite nicely, just consolidating sideways. I think we'll probably consolidate, I would imagine, into next week. And then I think that's when we'll start to see some things break out. George is asking Scott, who's Scott Bessent, US Secretary of the Treasury? He's basically telling everybody what they want to hear. Now, let's have a look. I've had some altcoin requests, so I'd rather just cover it with the altcoin charts because they all pretty much tell the same story. So rather than go through individual charts, let's just talk more broadly about altcoins and the crypto market. So Total 2, for anyone new, is the crypto market excluding Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is currently just over 2 trillion, 2.07 trillion of the entire crypto market, which stands at 3.2 trillion. So 1.13 trillion in altcoins. As you can see, we topped last March. We had a massive run up, topped, corrected. This was the August dump. Everybody freaked out. Bull run was cancelled, recession. And then obviously we got the Trump election, which kickstarted this massive run. So if we draw fibs from the March top to the August low, we can see that after we broke out, thanks to the Trump election, we slapped right off the 1.618 extension, around $1.6 trillion for the altcoin market. We've since corrected back down. We got all the way back to 850 billion, back to the 200-week moving average. Held it as support, round at the 0.236 extension, and now we are back up. We got back to the top, which was the March 2024 top, not the all-time high, because we've not got there yet. And now we're back at the 702 level. Anyone that's been watching or following crypto, us or anyone else, knows the 702 level is quite a key level in crypto. It acts as a massive resistance, and always has done. Bitcoin, altcoins, 702 is a key resistance. Well, the altcoin market's flipped it from resistance to support. You can see it was resistance back in March this year. We're now holding it at support. It looks, if we go to the 3-day time frame, that we're actually now building quite a nice base of support. If we hold this as support over the next few days, I do think the next leg up could be loading, and we could start to move up into next week for the altcoin market. And for me, the next target for the altcoin market would be the 2.618, which sits at 2.16 trillion. So pretty much double where we are today. And that would be massive flows of liquidity into altcoins. It would probably coincide with some news about an ETF or some more bullish regulation around crypto. And yeah, I think this is a very bullish sign that we're holding the 702 now as support. If we look at total 3, so this excludes Ethereum, pretty similar story, but if we look at the others chart, let's look at it on the weekly. This is the chart everybody really cares about. This is your Alvaras, your LimeWires. Got asked about other coins. Borg will be in here. Pretty much anything that's not the top 10 crypto coins by market cap. So this is the chart everybody should just pay attention to, because this is the chart that everybody cares about in terms of their bags. Opulus is in here, all these coins. So rather than look at every single chart, this is the chart you want to look at. For me, I think there's nothing saying that we couldn't come down to this 211 billion level to test the weekly 200 moving average as support. We're below the 3-day, so for me, we need to recapture that. But on the daily, we do actually look pretty bullish, to be fair, in terms of not bullish that we're going to all-time highs, but more bullish that we could be forming some form of support here. If we look at this could be considered a bit of a head and shoulder pattern. It's not the tidiest in the world, but you can see we're starting to form support. It's a bit of a fallen wedge. Now, the one caveat I would have is that we need to start putting in higher lows in the coming days. So I think we've been putting in lower highs, lower lows. We need to turn that trend around pretty soon. But like I say, that could come with a capitulation event and then a recovery, a V-shaped recovery from there. But instead of looking at individual charts, what I can do is say LimeWire, I still remain pretty bullish on. Borg, obviously super bullish on, one of my biggest holdings. Opulus, I am still bullish. Yeah, it's got absolute trash today, down 11%. Not really sure what's caused that. But I'm still super bullish on it. I think what everybody forgets is how bad 2021 and 2020 were at periods. I think everybody looks back with these kind of rose-tinted glasses that 2021 was easy and there was no big drawdowns and blah, blah, blah. But if you actually look at the total 2 chart, which is the altcoin market, and obviously there was a lot less noise back then, but there were some seriously bad drawdowns. Like even if we look at April into the summer, the altcoin market drew down over 60%. So it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. It wasn't that easy back then. There was less altcoins, yes, but there were still loads of altcoins that trailed. But once we go into this kind of expansion phase to put in new all-time highs, then I think everybody will chill out and everybody will be quite happy that they bought low and that they got their averages down. And there's still some big drawdowns. Like they don't look that big on the chart, but there's a 32% drawdown. There's a 35% drawdown. These are all on the way to all-time highs. Bear in mind, during this period, Bitcoin's making new all-time high week after week after week, and altcoins are still getting crushed 30-35%. So, yeah, I think it's just about being patient. You can also see that the altcoin market lags, so about a month. So you can see here that Bitcoin made its all-time high in April 9th, I think it was, or 4th. No, actually, sorry, it was the 20th, because April's before. So it was the 20th of April, Bitcoin made its all-time high in 2021. 12th of May, the altcoin market put its all-time high in before making a new all-time high in November. Let's have a look at some other questions. So somebody asked me about OCC. So the hilarious thing about OCC is it's not dead. I have no idea why. There is zero updates from them, but it looks like they're actually partnering with Galactica. So I don't have it up. I'll get the proper information. I'll do a CC Pro update on OCC, but yeah, they're partnering with Galactica. They've got some launchpad. Yeah, there is updates coming, so it's definitely not dead. I'm not sure what's happening in terms of the price, but I get asked that all the time. So yeah, it's not dead yet. There's definitely stuff going on behind the scenes. Somebody asked, is Delta our main focus? No, not at all. We have been saying for ages that diversification is the key. We feel like, well, certainly I can speak for myself. So the entire team at CC Pro, we have a couple of joint investments, but we also invest our own money into our own things. What I would say is that we've packed our bags. Like, we are set. We are now waiting to take profit. There is going to be times where you want to add or you want to buy stuff. But at this point in the market, there is some altcoins that look amazing buys. But there's also that element of having passive income, like Quintoshi and other stuff like that. Passive income is the key. So Delta's not our focus. Our focus is seeing out this bull run and making as much profit as possible. But like anything, you have to have diversified investments, interests, and yeah, that's why we're promoting everything. Still bullish on Oculus. Yeah, very bullish. Oculus is a huge bag of mine, mostly because I kept buying it all the way down. All right, I've got a few tabs that I'm going to run through that I think is quite interesting in the grand scheme of things. So obviously we spoke about Fed, Powell, thinks growth is going to drop, thinks inflation might run hot. Inflation is going to run hot. Inflation is going to be massive over the next 5 years. It's the only way out. What is interesting is Switzerland is now back at zero interest. So the euro and the Swiss franc are now very low rates versus America. That's quite big because what it'll do is it'll fix the balance of capital. So Japan, obviously their interest rates have been rising. People have been pulling capital out of the US back to Japan. Well, the US has probably found its plug for that capital, and that'll be cheap euros, cheap Swiss francs that they can attract with higher rates in the US. Interest rate probability, September, almost 60% of a cut in September. I think this will change over the next couple of weeks. I think this will rise. I think July will move closer to 99% that it won't be a cut. As soon as this gets up above 75-80%, you'll see it in the market. The market will price it in, and that'll be really bullish for all risk assets. If we look at this one, paywall. But ultimately, this is about the SLR. So if you don't know what the SLR is, the SLR basically stipulates how much US banks can hold in assets versus cash on hand. Right now, there's a percentage they have to hold in treasuries. They're going to reduce the capital required. So basically, when a bank invests in assets to achieve yield, they have to have an equivalent amount of cash on hand in case something happened. They're going to eliminate US treasuries from that, so they can buy way more treasuries and they don't need the cash in the bank to back it up, because no one's ever going to call them out on the treasuries. That is going to free up $500 billion in buying power for US treasuries. That's if they just reduce it by 1.5%. If they get rid of it altogether, it's trillions. So I think the first step, and Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, who I keep talking about, has already said this summer the SLR will get changed. That will free up 500 billion. That 500 billion will flow straight into the market. So that's instant liquidity. It'll come into the market. It'll also at the same time bring yields down on government debt. Right now, there's $7 trillion sitting earning interest on government debt, short-term government debt. Once those yields start dropping, that 7 trillion has to find yield somewhere else. In my opinion, a large percentage of it is going to flow into risk assets because it's not going to sit and do nothing. They need to earn decent yield for their clients. They're not going to get it in US Treasuries, so they're going to seek it elsewhere. And where is a great place to make amazing returns? Crypto. Some of that 7 trillion is going to flow into crypto this year. Combine that with SLR, there's your liquidity. Massive bull run. Easy. Somebody keeps talking about Ethereum. I've saw a few people talk about it, mostly on Twitter. So right now, ETF inflows have been record high, like hundreds of billions flowing into Ethereum over the last couple of months. At the same time, hedge funds are still record short on CME. What that tells me is institutions are holding down the price so they can buy as much as possible. So all they do is they buy spot Ethereum and probably stake it. But at the same time, they short the market. Once they close those shorts, because when they short it, they'll dump the price, people will sell, people will get liquidated, they'll scoop up the cheap Ethereum, they'll keep buying spot. Eventually, they'll close their shorts and the price will rally and there will be a massive short squeeze. And I think that will come very soon. But right now, the fact that Ethereum's risen from, I think it was $1,800, maybe a bit lower, it's now $2,500. Shorts are still at record highs. This is going to be a massively bullish story in the coming weeks. We're going to see Ethereum put in a ridiculous God candle. It'll be timed with some narrative around Ethereum. It's noise. All that's happening is big players are going to close their shorts. They've already bought loads of supply and Ethereum will fly. Because the only reason it's not moving right now is because of the futures and the shorts. So hopefully everybody saw this week that Circle IPO'd, stablecoin regulation got approved, Genius Act got approved. People keep asking about Genius Act, but basically all it means is stablecoins are now regulated in the US. Banks are going to create their own stablecoins. You'll get a JP Morgan coin, you'll get a Citibank coin, Bank of America coin. I'm pretty sure they will come. Why that's bullish for crypto is, think of what's the hardest part about investing in crypto right now. And it's not the negative days. The hardest thing about investing in crypto is getting your money in and out of crypto. You solve that problem, crypto's easy. You think asking anyone to go and buy Bitcoin. Tell your mom, your friends, your family, whatever, to go and buy crypto. Hardest part is actually getting money on an exchange. The US have literally just fixed that once this gets signed into law. Stablecoins become regulated. Your bank account will probably have a stablecoin option, a bit like Revolut. That will be what every bank account in the US looks like in the coming year. So they fixed the biggest blocker from getting into crypto, all by creating stablecoin regulation. So for me, this is hugely bullish. Once you fix the on and off ramps, you basically make it an easy golden path for people to invest in crypto. And let's be serious, once people get some stable coins, they're going to dabble, they're going to buy stuff, that's where the retail FOMO comes from. It's those people that, once you make it easy for them, they start dabbling, they start investing, they'll be the retail people that start buying into crypto this year. And on top of that, it's bullish for the dollar. So it's going to create dollar demand all around the world. People will be able to access stable coins, they'll be able to pay in stable coins, they'll be able to do stuff with stable coins. That is bullish for the US government because stablecoins have to hold, for every $1 of stablecoin they issue, they need to hold $1 in US government debt. More buyers for government debt brings down yields. Yields come down, means they're going to print more money. Print more money creates liquidity for everyone, which creates the bull run. So everything is bullish. There is literally nothing bearish right now. And lastly, this is a bit of a side track, but this is one tab that I thought was quite an interesting article. Innovations, the key to escaping the crisis made by inflationary policies. This, in my opinion, is a big story that no one seems to be paying attention to. Governments around the world are banking on AI. They are banking that AI is going to be this massive productivity boom. It's going to bring down prices, it's going to create efficiencies, it's going to create massive amounts of wealth for everybody because people will be able to work 24/7 using AI agents and things like that. They're banking on AI, in my opinion. But in order to make AI successful, they need massive amounts of energy, they need massive amounts of power. The easiest way to do that is print loads of money. So I think we're going to go through a massive boom in the next 5 to 10 years, but a lot of it will come from government spending, government money printing. It won't be hugely inflationary, so we won't see like 10% inflation because the efficiencies and the price reductions caused by AI will alleviate some of that pressure. So the government can print 10% today and we'd have 5, 6, 7% inflation. Well, AI is going to cause prices to drop. If you think Amazon warehouses having robots doing the packing instead of humans, you're going to have robo-taxis in the States started already. That brings down costs and productivity booms from self-driving. AI and robotics are going to be a game changer over the next year. I've spoke about it in the past on streams and people seem to think it was more 5-10 years away. It's not. It's coming in the next 12 months. And I think this is the gamble or the bet that governments around the world are putting, and it's going to be massively bullish for Bitcoin. Bitcoin loves liquidity, but at the same time, it's inversely correlated to fiat debasement. Governments, if they get this AI productivity boom, are going to be able to print trillions. Saw somebody saying something like 45 trillion they expect printed over the next 10 years. That's 4 or 5 times the amount they printed during COVID. At the same time, Bitcoin supply shrinking, adoption's growing, institutional adoption. Bitcoin is going to absolutely fly over the next 5 years. And it's all basically because of money printing for the government. So, yeah, I thought it was a bit of a sidetrack. I thought it was an interesting story. People are finally picking up on the fact that this is what they're betting on. But for me, this just makes me super bullish on crypto and especially Bitcoin. But we will see that flow into crypto. And if you think about it from a business point of view, if you're 21, 22, you're in America, or you're in Asia or something like that, and you want to start a business, not the UK, because it's the less said about the UK, the better. But if you're in one of these countries, you want to start a business, you want to start a tech startup, you're not going down the traditional funding route. You're going to start a crypto business. You're going to have a token. Loads of businesses are going to have some exposure to either Bitcoin, crypto, or have their own token in the next couple of years. It's going to be the new way of investing, especially as equities come on chain. Another point about equities coming on chain. So stocks and equities are going to come on chain. Stablecoins are going to be massive. They are all super bullish for crypto as a whole because the fees. So stablecoins on Ethereum, they're going to generate fees, they're going to generate activity. People are going to want to hold Ethereum and stake it in order to earn even more fees. So it's all culminating for a massive explosion. And for me, I can only see it going one way in the next couple of months. I think there will be some fear-induced dumps along the way. You saw what they've tried to do to shake people out of the market. You saw this dump caused by Trump and Elon falling out. Who cares? Bitcoin does not care about tariffs. Bitcoin does not care about Trump, about Elon. It doesn't even care about Iran and Israel. This is just people de-risking, people getting scared out of the market, and most of all, it's just big players dumping the price in order to buy cheaper. That's all this is. Let's see if we've got any more questions. So not a question, but somebody in CC Pro says every time we expect a big run, it seems to be delayed for some reason. Does there come a point where you question if we'll ever see it? No. What's changed this cycle versus most cycles is normally when a president gets elected, they come in and they want their agenda in place pretty quickly. And 99% of elected officials' agenda involves spending money. And then what happens is normally towards the end of their term, it's a bit drab and everybody's looking forward to the next guy coming in. What's happened this time is Trump's basically front ran all the pain. So he's been as noisy and as chaotic and a bit bull in a china shop at the start of his term. And by doing that, he's kind of created a lot of chaos, created a lot of pressure on the economy, on rates, on the stock market. But what he's actually doing is he's going to set himself up for a bullish second half of his presidency. If you look at 90% of, well, that's made up, but if you look at the majority of presidential terms, they always do worse in the midterms than they do in the election. And the reason for that is because people, by the time they get to the midterms, the positivity wave of a new president has faded, and then they lose a bit in steam in the midterms, and then by the time they leave, everybody's waiting for the next guy to come in. Trump's done the opposite. So he's caused all this chaos, but what I think he's going to do is set himself up for a massive rally, and it'll be the economy led, because that's what most people care about, is a massive rally into 2026 in order to win the midterms. Because if he wins the midterms with a landslide, he can enact his agenda and his legacy on the last 2 years of his term. If he loses those midterms, which if the midterms were tomorrow, he would get a massive, he would lose a lot of votes, he'd lose a lot of seats, and it would make policy really difficult in the second half. But he's front running all this pain, he's putting people through a bit of a turbulent time, but it's for the benefit of policy and the economy long term. And I think people are missing that point. And I think when we get into 2026, it'll become clear what's going on. And I think it'll set them up for a big win in the midterms. And to be honest, I don't really care. But what I do know is that that's delayed the bull run. All this chaos, tariffs, blah, 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 it's all just noise. It's all Trump at work, trying to set up himself for his legacy. But it's just delayed the bull run. It's changed the way the bull run's going to be. But if you look at everything that's happened, SEC's pro-crypto, Trump's pro-crypto, and heavily invested. You've got senators passing crypto legislation, which is bullish. You've got the banks now allowed to custody Bitcoin and issue stable coins. You've got the Treasury Secretary telling you that they're going to outgrow the debt. Crazy. They're going to print. You've got the regulations around banks buying government debt getting changed to make it more risky for banks. Something nobody wants except governments. All these things are setting themselves up for a huge boom in the economy. And they keep telling you. And everybody keeps ignoring it. It's coming. People just need to be patient. Don't get me wrong. We're in the same boat. And I think that's why sometimes we get on these and can sound super positive. But it's because we're going through it as well. You know, 95% of my net worth are in crypto. So I feel it the same as everybody. But what I do know is when you look at all the things, you zoom out, you look at everything that's going on, there's no way you can't be bullish on this market if you zoom out. If you look hourly, 4 hour, day to day, yeah, it looks pretty terrible today. Tomorrow, we might bounce. Monday, we probably are up higher than we are today. Middle of July, we're at all-time high. Easy. All right, so what's everyone saying? How are we feeling now? Are we feeling better? Are we feeling more bullish, more bearish? Anyone got any questions? I think that was quite a good way of doing it, is getting questions ahead of time. I hope you enjoyed those answers. All we can do is be as honest as we see it and call it the way we've seen it. It's frustrating because, people are already want to be driving their supercars rather than still staring at them on Auto Trader every night. But the thing is, and I say this all the time, if you can make life-changing gains, does it matter if it takes a year or it takes 2 years? Not really. And the bear market is definitely coming. So the bear market is coming, and you need to have a profit-taking plan. Don't think this market's going to... Bitcoin's not going to $1 million before crashing. So get a plan, get out of the market once we start going into kind of that, what Deck always calls it, no sleep season. Make sure you've got a plan. Get ready for massive profit taking and stay out of the market once you've taken profit. So many people in 2021, they would take profit on XRP, maybe not XRP, that's probably a bad example in 2021 to be fair. Take profit on Ethereum, and then they would look down coin stats, they would look down coin market cap, they would look at TradingView and go, oh, this altcoin's not really ran much, I'll put my profits in there and I'll turn that into 5x. And what happened, it's just a game of musical chairs, and eventually you get caught with no seat. So my advice would be, take profit, stay out of the market, withdraw it, put it somewhere that you can earn passive income, lock it up, because in the bear market, so many of these altcoins are going to get absolutely destroyed, and many, in my opinion, in the next bear market won't return. I think the next bear market and bull run is going to be dominated by coins that have a real business, a real purpose, real users, real revenue, and actually earn money and actually can function despite the token price. Whereas so many right now, the token is the product. I think that's going to shift in the next bear market. So I would try my best not to get caught holding too much into the next bear market. And that's why the September is at the top, or is it kind of a top before we go on and put in the blow off top? I do feel a bit cautious talking about that, because I don't want Bitcoin to drop 30% September into October and everybody buy thinking we're going back up again. There's no guarantees. And I think I've spoke about it before, but in 2021, let me show you it on screen, just because I'd rather people learn from my mistake. I remember this period in here, so let me draw it on the screen, because it's quite a good... This period in here, everyone was telling me, and I was a couple of years into crypto at this point, I was 2 years into crypto at this point, everybody was saying this was the bottom. I think it was around 30k, yeah, around 32k, 30k. Everyone was claiming that was the bottom. You can look on Twitter, there's a million tweets from everyone you can think of saying this was the bottom. I remember trying to buy in here, buying loads in here, and obviously then we went into the FTX crash, crashed massively from there, and it was such a hard lesson. So I think just look out for signs, and if you actually look at this, no higher highs, no higher lows, this is just trending sideways, no break of structure, and then we broke down. So if we do go into a massive run up into September, say we hit 150k, if we do drop 30-40%, do not buy back in until you see something that tells you that we're still in the bull run. So that's why we've kind of, we're planning that when we get to that kind of September peak, that's the top. It's easier to plan for that, and then if there's another run, that you can adjust. But yeah, don't get caught not taking profit if we get up to 150k in the next few months, which I think's a really solid shout. Now, if you follow the channel, you know I talk about Uniswap all the time. DEX tokens, it's one of my favourite topics. You'll see, or you'll have saw Bybit have just announced their own DEX and their own DEX token. The reason everyone is doing this is because of AI. Uniswap still showing strength despite the market drawdown. I think we're going to see a massive rally in DEX tokens in the coming months. That's why they're all, even Mexi has got its own DEX now, or it's got DEX integration. DEXs are going to be huge. The power of sexes is getting less and less. And the other thing is, as banks and regulators and the next piece of regulation that Trump's going to, or the administration's going to work on, is market structure. That is going to have a massive impact on sexes, or centralized exchanges. So DEXs are going to be huge. DEXs are going to eventually get, I think they're 35% of all crypto volume right now. That'll get to 50% this year. So yeah, any DEX token you have, hang on to it, because it's going much, much higher over the next few months. AI will help as well. AI agents, you saw X is talking about, or Twitter is talking about integrating a trading element to it, so you can buy, sell, trade on Twitter. That's going to be a DEX. That's going to be through DEXs. It's not going to be through some SEX. So yeah, I think we're setting ourselves up for a massive DEX bull run in the coming months. Good question, Usman. So it really depends what type of investor you are. If it also depends what you're aiming for. There's two schools of thought. There's one, if you hold Bitcoin, lock it away, pull it out in 10, 15 years, give it to your kids. It's your retirement, whatever you want to do. Me personally, I would probably do a bit of both. I would have some that's a stash. I would definitely be trying to rotate and buy cheaper. Do not buy into this nonsense that Bitcoin will never go into a bear market. The more and more Bitcoin companies I see, the more convinced I am that we're going to have a horrific bear market, because it just, I think MicroStrategy looks okay-ish, but what is their business? Eventually, as regulation comes in, more and more people can just buy Bitcoin. Why would you buy a company that holds Bitcoin when you could just buy Bitcoin? MicroStrategy served a purpose for those people that couldn't buy Bitcoin, but in the next 6 months, pretty much everybody's going to be able to just go and buy it themselves. So, yeah, I think we'll definitely see a bear market. We'll see 40, maybe 50% drawdown in Bitcoin's price. So, yeah, you could do a bit of both. I was speaking to somebody, I doubt he's on stream actually, but I think it was last April, he started dollar cost average in Bitcoin. I think he's up 40% already since then. So it doesn't matter what price, in my opinion, it doesn't matter what price you buy it, Bitcoin will go much higher in the next 5 to 10 years. So if you can't be bothered, try to time it and try and buy lower, just hold it. It's going so much higher. And I also think like yield on Bitcoin, borrowing against Bitcoin, all stuff like that's going to be coming very soon. Even in the UK, they'll eventually catch up. So I think, for me, I think you could do a bit of both. Maybe sell half, keep half, and then just set up a dollar cost average. And even if you buy some at 125k, it doesn't matter, because it'll be worth $1 million by 2030 anyway. Overall, we could see another drop down to this kind of 101k level over the next few weeks. We never ever got to this 97k box. So that is still probably the the worst case scenario. I think if we do get there, it's a V-shaped recovery. We recover really fast, and then I think we go on to new all-time highs. But I would say the next 7 days, probably over the weekend, probably dictates it. I think if we get any peace in Israel, Iran, we fly. Once we get, I think Jerome Powell's talking to Congress next week. I think that'll shed some light on rate cuts, and I think you'll get a lot more pressure. And I think the odds of September cut will be pretty much starting to get priced in by the end of the month. I think next week, let me check my calendar. Yeah, so next Friday is a massive options expiry. It's the last Friday of the month, quarter, and 6 months. So there's a lot of options expiring next Friday. So I expect the price to be quite volatile into that. The monthly candle close on the Monday, and there's a lot of things going on with the option market. I'll maybe do an update on CC Pro, maybe do a video on options, because there's a lot of theories about that's why price keeps moving the way it does. But that is pretty much all for tonight. I hope that helped. I hope that alleviated some issues. I hope we covered loads tonight. I feel like I've been on one massive rant. But the market, to me, looks pretty healthy. It's frustrating, it's slow, it's boring. But there's a lot of big things coming. I think we're going to see some massive gains over the next 90 days, and people just need to get ready to take some profit. Quintoshi looking strong as ever, 21%, while Bitcoin's only up 9%, and it's had one of the biggest capitulation events, in fact the biggest capitulation event in crypto history, not to mention all the other chaos we've had to endure this year so far. So I think the back end of the year we'll see that ROI skyrocket. As always, if you're not on CC Pro, you need to get involved. We have all this every single day, and I'll be back in the next few weeks. Catch you all later, and thanks for tuning in.
Far